What's up, YouTube? Aquarium's here, bringing you guys another video. Today I'm doing something a little different, and this is going to be like a story time type video. And I am warning you guys, everything I'm about to tell you guys is probably going to make some people uncomfortable, especially devout fish hobbyists and all that. It involves mental abuse and partially me being a bratty kid, and also involving fish being killed. But as you guys know, I've been on YouTube since I was like 13 years old, been posting fish videos since 2012, and like as you guys see now, like I run this tank like all on my own. I pay for everything. I do everything I want to this tank. But that wasn't always the case because, you know, back in the day, I was a kid. I was legally too young to work and all that. So back in my earlier days of fish keeping, everything was paid for by my dad. He's the one who showed me how to take care of a tank, how to run things with a tank and all that stuff. My dad's side of the family, they were all fish hobbyists before me. And my grandparents are the ones who got me into rainbow sharks and red-tailed sharks. And so yeah, this fish tank hobby was started for me because of my dad and my grandparents. But a lot of people talk about how great it is to share a hobby with your family members and all that. But it's also a big disadvantage, especially when you're a kid, so your parents are the ones in control. So, like, obviously, like, if I wasn't on my best behavior, the fish tank would be gone or whatever. But when I got into high school, it got down to a certain point, like, where my dad was literally, like, getting rid of fish, like, because of grades. Before, it was just, like, if I, like, misbehaved at school or something, like, did something really bad. But like towards the like seconds, like right a bit, I can't talk. Right around the beginning of the second semester of my freshman year of high school, my dad started getting to that level where every time I missed an assignment in a class or failed a test or whatever, or if like one of my grades on the grading website said that I had a D or an F in a class, my dad would get the net, scoop one fish out of the tank, and it was usually a roseline or a rainbow shark. Well, no, he only ever got rid of one rainbow shark. And obviously I just told all my viewers that that it died or something, but that wasn't exactly the case. Like, I look back at my older videos where I put in the description, oh yeah, one of the roseline sharks died, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't exactly the case. What was really happening was every time I missed an assignment in a class or failed a quiz or a test, or if the grading website showed that I had a D or an F in a class, my dad would scoop one of the fish out of the tank and either take it back to the fish store, chuck it over the backyard wall, or flush it down the toilet. And, you know, I'm like a 14, 15-year-old kid, and this like was like really traumatizing to me. And like, obviously people could say, well, just do better in school, get better grades. Yeah, this is my freshman year of high school. Like I did start fucking around with smoking weed and like playing around with other drugs and all that shit. I was getting into like the little party life. So yeah, my grades were slipping. So, but like, that's still like not a real excuse to like mess with a child's pet. And I'm going to be real here. The lives of your child's fish should never ever depend on grades. Like, if you got your kid a dog and your kid's dog, or wait, no. I keep slipping up. I need to like write a script before I do these videos, but if you got your kid a dog or a cat and your kid's grades started slipping, would you just start starving the dog until the kid's grades improved? Now, also, not only that, there were times where I had a velvet outbreak or whatever it was. Like somehow velvet, I ended up with some, like, I'm pretty sure it was velvet to this day, but it could have been some other type of disease. And it was spreading across the entire tank. And I needed to treat it. So I told my dad, like, obviously I couldn't just go get a job and buy the treatment myself. I was too young to work legally. And also my school wouldn't have allowed me to work anyway. But yeah, the tank needed to be treated, but my dad's like, nope, we're not treating the tank until your grades improve. But I don't know if my dad didn't understand this or if he was just doing that on purpose, but when there's a disease outbreak in a fish tank, time is precious. And even if I did like complete all of my missing assignments and turn them in, the teachers at my school only didn't update the grading website right away. They usually only updated it like once a month or whatever. So I could easily turn in like all of my missing assignments, but the grade on the grading website would not change until like a couple weeks, a few weeks, or a month later. It would still say F. So this was obviously making me freak out and like go insane. And also like I was fucking on drugs or fucking, I was like either fucking high as fuck or on some type of drug like at least like 5 times a week. So like I was having kind of a little bit of mental issues too at the time. So I was like going batshit crazy, like lashing out and everything. And that obviously wasn't helping my case. But yeah, like this continued for a time period where missing assignment, failed test, whatever, like F in a class, D in a class, a fish gets flushed. And yeah, I know this may sound disturbing to some of y'all, but yeah, that's literally what my dad did. Like the lives of my fish were depending on my grades. And it didn't matter if I turned missing assignments in or whatever, until it showed on the grading website that the grade went up or whatever. Fish were going to keep getting killed or gotten rid of. So, yeah, and then it got to the point where like things really started to go down. My dad started upping the game a little bit. And if any of you guys remember one of my old videos called Shamu Aquariums is Going Planted, where like you completely notice like the whole 125 gallon tank that I had at the time was completely like redone. Like all the fake decorations were replaced with driftwood and all that shit and live plants or green plants and all that. Like that was because basically, and like before this, I didn't upload any videos for like a month or two because basically my dad took it to that level where he was just taking decorations out of the tank. So for like a good month and a half or so, the 125 gallon that I had at the time was completely bare almost. Like there was no decor in the tank, just a bunch of fish swimming around with maybe like 1 or 2 ornaments in it. And I didn't post any videos of that because it just looked awful and it was embarrassing. People would be like wondering like, what the hell's going on? Why is your fish tank being stripped down? And like basically it was getting to that point where my dad was like threatening to get rid of the whole entire tank if my grades didn't go up by a certain amount of time. And we had like finals coming up, or like no, midterms coming up. And so my dad was really getting on my ass. And oh shit, okay, this is like bringing back like childhood trauma for me. Like I'm getting really fucking angry thinking about it. Yeah, it was getting to that point where almost all of my decor and like fake plants were being torn out of the tank by my dad because my grades weren't improving fast enough or whatever. And you know, I'm fucking 15 years old, fucking doing acid with my friends and shit and popping Benadryl. So I'm like starting to go in like some kind of psychosis and shit. So like I was rebelling big time. And so when my grades kept slipping, fish were getting taken out of the tank. Like it was always rose lines. Like if you guys ever, okay, I already said this earlier in the video, but like that's why like I kept saying in my videos like, oh, a rose line died, couple rose lines died or whatever. No, they were being flushed down the toilet by my fucking dad because my grades were dropping. And then, yeah, we get to the point where like he's taking decor out of the tank and like stripping the tank down, like taking decor out of the tank. Another mixing assignment. Okay, we're taking this big rock ornament out of the tank and throwing it away. And then come around like late April of 2014, I snapped. Like, when I say snapped, I mean snapped. One day I stayed home from school because I was sick, and you know, my family is the type of family where it's like, oh, we don't give a fuck if you're sick, you're going to school. Especially since I'm the type of person who is still up and walking around even when I have a 103-degree fever. That's just me. And I don't really appear sick when I get sick, but when I get really sick, I don't even appear that sick. So my family would always be like, no, you can go to school, you're fine. But if I went to school, all the classrooms had air conditioning full blast, no matter what time of the year it was. And they were moldy as shit. Like the air conditionings at my school were super, super moldy. So yeah, if I went to school, my symptoms would have been like 10 times worse. But yeah, I stayed home from school. Me and my dad got in a big ass fucking fight. My dad's like, if you don't go to school, I'm getting rid of the whole fucking tank right now. Like, as soon as I get home from work. Well, I fucking snapped at that point. I could not take it anymore. And before I get into this, what I did, I'm the type of person where, like, if you hold something over my head for too long, I will smack it out of your hand. Like, if something gets held over my head for too long or too much, like over literally everything, it loses value to me. Like, I was always the type of kid where if like my parents threatened to take my phone away all the time, I just handed my phone right to them and said, screw you. So yeah, I eventually just snapped, and like I didn't want it to get to this point, but like I just needed to get it off my shoulders, or that's how I felt at the time. And you know, I'm fucking playing around with drugs, and I'm like a high school kid playing around with drugs and shit, hanging out with the wrong crowd. So my brain wasn't exactly thinking very logically. But after that big ass fight that day I stayed home from school because I was sick, I fucking snapped and I said, you know what, fuck you. And this was like over a text conversation with my dad, and you know, it was on my phone, and you know, that was getting taken away like all the time. So I fucking smashed the phone. Like, you know, he wants to take away the phone from me, I'm getting rid of the phone myself. So I smashed the phone. And I was at my mom's house when this happened. My tank is at my dad's. And I left my mom's house, and I walked all the way from Huntington Beach to my dad's house in Anaheim. And once I finally got to my dad's house, I grabbed a baseball bat out of the shed. And my plan, this is really gonna think like, wow, this guy is psycho. Don't worry, I don't think like I'm fucking psycho anymore. This is like 15-year-old me. I'm 24 now. But I grabbed the baseball bat out of the shed, and I was ready to go inside that house and I was gonna get rid of that fish tank myself in a very wet, messy way. I was literally ready to fucking swing the baseball bat at the fish tank, since my dad was fucking with it, like flushing fish down the toilet, taking decorations out of the tank, and basically slowly getting rid of the tank simply because my grades weren't high enough. He was killing fish because my grades were too low. Like, the lives of fish should never depend on your kid's grades. That is animal abuse. Like, you're killing fish because your child's grades are too low. I'm pretty sure if my dad would have pulled that shit with like our dogs or our cats or whatever, he would have been arrested very fast. But yeah, he was basically mentally abusing me with my fucking fish. And like, the most illogical part was the fact that even if I did turn in my assignments, and even if a teacher confirmed that I turned in all my missing assignments, he didn't care because he only wanted to see what the grading website said, even though the teachers didn't update it all the time. And for him to just let a fish disease like spread across the tank and refuse to treat it until my grades improved, that's fucked up. So yeah, I was ready to say, fuck this, I'll get rid of the fish tank myself. And I had the baseball bat in my hand. I went to the little like water heater shed where our water heater was. That's where the spare key to the house was kept. And luckily the spare key was not there. I don't know why it wasn't there. Maybe somebody else was using it. But yeah, if the spare key was there, I would have gotten into the house and broke that tank with the baseball bat. And I would have had my little moment of, haha, fuck you, Dad. You have nothing to control me with now. You have no fucking leverage. Like, I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, that was my breaking point. If my fish hobby was going to keep getting all screwed up because my grades were too low. Like, hell, he was even getting rid of fish at some point over a C. Like, for having a C in a class, he was fucking flushing fish down the toilet. But like, yeah, like, I couldn't get into the house, so my plan of getting rid of the fish tank myself in a very wet, messy way was foiled, thankfully. And like, my mom knew this was going on the whole time, and she, like, shit like this is why my parents are divorced. Because my mom thinks my dad's sick in the head. And yeah, so basically my mom was like getting on him about it, like, this is causing, like, she was like telling him straight up, like, my grades were not going to improve if my dad was causing me all this mental anguish by killing my fish because of grades. And my mom even said, like, that's animal abuse. The lives of your child's pet fish should never ever depend on grades. Use something else, like normal punishments, not like taking the phone away or fucking like being grounded or whatever, but it should never ever involve the lives of fish. So yeah, like, and like, my last text to my dad before I smashed the phone and started walking to his house while he was at work was like, I basically threatened suicide to freak him out. Like, I wasn't planning on committing suicide or nothing. That was like okay, cool, you're gonna have a dead son in a minute. And then I smashed the phone right away. So that freaked my dad out. My dad, while I was walking all the way to my dad's house, my dad was at my mom's house. And like, cops, he called 911 and everything. And he called my mom, like, telling my mom the situation. My mom was just instantly like, what the fuck did you do to my dad? Like, she instantly told my dad, like, what the fuck did you do? And then, yeah, like, my dad spent like hours like at my mom's house, like, because like the cops came, the cops got into the house, and they're like, he's not here. My dad had no idea where I was at the time. I smashed the phone. And yeah, so like, I'm like sitting at my dad's house on the porch for like over 2 hours because I couldn't get in. Thank God I did not get in there, because I really would, like, I'm dead ass when I say this, I would have smashed the fish tank with a baseball bat. So yeah, my dad finally comes home and he sees me sitting there on the porch. And he's like, what the hell are you doing here? And I'm like, so you want to keep using the fucking fish tank to control me, right? And I fucking, like, and I was getting ready to, like, I had the baseball bat and everything. And I had threatened this once before, so he knew what I was thinking about doing. And this is where he pretty much figured out that I was not bluffing. That I was really dead ass going to smash that fish tank and have a bunch of glass and water and fish all over his bedroom floor if he kept continuing to use my fish tank as punishment for anything. Yeah. You might be thinking, wow, psychopath, spoiled brat kid. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I was on fucking drugs and shit all the time. Not like hard drugs like fucking meth and speed and heroin and shit. I'm just more talking like lots and lots of weed and some acid and some fucking shrooms and very high doses of Benadryl. Yeah, I was fucking around with Benadryl back then. And I had developed like a severe case of depersonalization from like excessive weed consumption plus the other little drugs I was doing at the time. I was also popping pills here and there. Luckily, not enough to become addicted, but I sure as hell loved playing around with benzos and opiates. But I spaced that shit out enough to not become hooked. But I was going a little crazy like a fucking addict and going nuts. And that's why like when my dad kept using the fish tank to punish me like that, killing my fish because my grades were dropping. That's yeah. That was my mindset. It's like, okay, you're gonna keep using my fish tank to punish me. You're gonna start killing my fish because my grades are dropping. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the fish tank myself and kill all the fish myself. I'm gonna smash the fish tank with a baseball bat. Well, I won that battle. Yeah, I'm not proud of this. I'm not bragging or nothing. This is basically just what happened. So yeah, from that point forward, my dad never ever used the fish tank to punish me ever again. Like I pretty much won that battle. Like he started using normal punishments, and guess what? When the fish tank was no longer being used to punish me and shit, my grades started improving. Like because my grades weren't improving during that whole mess with the fish tank because of all the stress it was causing me. And you know what I was doing in order to cope with that kind of stress? I was smoking more and more fucking weed like a fucking chimney. And yeah, like so yeah, that level of severe punishment over grades and like causing your kid that much stress is not going to help anything, especially permanent punishments. Like once the fish tank would have been gone, I would have had nothing to lose. So yeah, my dad backed down pretty much. Like it actually involved my mom like taking my dad to court. Like my mom was ready to stop letting my dad see me at that point. But yeah, that's pretty much how my aquarium hobby almost ended. So yeah, like after like now we're here. Like I had just walked all the way to my dad's house, couldn't get into the house, but like I was ready to smash my fish tank to pieces because of my dad using it to like try and control me with the grades and shit, like literally killing my fish over grades. So yeah, my tank was like almost completely bare, like with maybe one or two ornaments in it and a bunch of fish swimming around there. He took all the plants out, and my big fake rock decoration that was sitting in the middle, like he took out like some other fish tank ornaments out of the tank. So the tank was like almost completely bare, and I just had all these fish in there. Like lots of my roseline sharks or denison bars were missing because obviously every time I missed an assignment or failed a quiz or whatever, my dad would take one out of the tank and either flush it, throw it over the backyard wall into the alley, or simply take it back to the fish store and get money for them. And yeah, every time he did that, I did take maybe every other time my dad like took out one of my fish out of the tank, I probably did take like a $10 or a $20 bill out of his wallet for it, so I can go buy new ones. So yeah, I had quite a stash of money by the end of all this bullshit. Like I had probably like $60 on me. And yeah, like so now we're here with this almost bare tank, and then finally me and my dad made up after all this. Like especially like once my grades started to improve. But yeah, that's when we finally started like putting some stuff back into the tank. And then if you go to my Shamu Aquariums is Going Planted video, I'll put that link in the description below just so you can see that video. But that's where I transitioned my tank into a more natural look with like real driftwood and some real plants and obviously lots of fake plants. I still use fake plants to this day, but they're all green, and that my tanks have been that way ever since. Only green plants with some live plants and a more natural look with rocks and either fake or real driftwood. mostly fake. But yeah, that's how I ended up with all that driftwood in my tank that suddenly like replaced all the fake like rock, all like that fake fish tank ornament that I had in there, and all the colorful plants were gone and replaced with green ones and all that. So yeah, it wasn't just like a one day I just woke up and thought, you know what, I'm gonna start giving my tanks a more natural look. And no, it actually basically started with my dad fucking killing my fish because my grades were low, and then also removing all the fish tank decorations out of the tank because my grades were dropping. And then like finally when that scenario ended, like we basically started like redoing the like putting new stuff in the tank, but it was all like real like driftwood and all that shit. So yeah, it's kind of a crazy story to think about. And yeah, now here we are. Now if it weren't for that all that shit going down, my tanks probably wouldn't look like the way they do today. Well, not they. My tank wouldn't look the way it does today. Like this was my old 125 gallon at the time. Not the tank you see here, but like if it weren't for all that shit going down, my tank probably wouldn't have like this more natural look. Or maybe it would, but it would have happened much later on. But yeah, ever since then, you haven't seen one single like fake plant that's like purple or orange or red or pink or whatever. But yeah, that's basically what changed the hobby for me, and that's basically how my aquarium hobby like almost ended, is because of all that family drama. So yeah, comment down below what your thoughts on all this are. I know it sounds a little crazy, and like you're probably thinking, how could an aquarium hobbyist have the mindset to go and like and want to go smash his own fish tank with a baseball bat? Well, you just heard the story, and that's what pushed me to that breaking point. Don't do drugs, kids. It will, like, you will do very irrational things when you are playing around with too much weed, or playing around with acid or pills and shit in high school when your brain's still developing. So yeah, that pretty much brings you, like, by the way, have any of you guys ever noticed that every single one of your stoner friends, or most of them, I know, hey, everyday fish keeping, Dan Haichu, you're cool, but like, that's the, like, 80% of stoners I know are kind of mentally unstable, and I was one of them at the time, like, especially as a 15-year-old, my freaking brain was still developing, so all that weed and acid and some pill popping and shit, especially the Benadryl. That Benadryl shit made me fucking crazy, like, for a few days after I did it. But, like, yeah. That's how the mind of a stoner works. They just go batshit crazy when under high levels of pressure or stress. But yeah, that right there, that's how my fish keeping hobby almost ended. Like, you could say that either my dad almost ended it or that I almost ended it. Technically, I almost ended it. Like, my dad was threatening to end it, and I was like, oh, you're going to end my fish keeping hobby? Okay, I'll end it myself. That's pretty much what happened. Luckily, once it got to that breaking point, my dad backed down, and I was able to keep my fish tank. My dad started using other ways to what's the word? To discipline me. There we go. And that was way more effective. Once my dad stopped using the fish tank as a punishment for me in any way, shape, or form, my grades started going up, and I got through the rest of high school, graduated, and by junior year, I was like sobering up. So yeah, that's a good sign. So yeah, that's how my fish keeping hobby almost ended. So like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what your thoughts on all this are in the comments below. Sorry if this story made you guys uncomfortable, but that's the truth of what happened back in my earlier fish keeping days. So I will see you guys in the next video.